It is a great honor and a privilege to introduce Leah Stermer. Her maiden name was Kerner, and we're here in Johannesburg. And Leah, thank you so much for this evening, and if you could relate the story of your family.
Thank you. Well, my great-grandparents on my mother's side were born in Siret, Romania, and moved to Chernovitz, Romania as well, after they got married. Both were from a Frum family, and my gran had 8 siblings. She was the oldest, and my grandfather had only 2. In Chernovitz, Jews had a good life under the reign of Franz Joseph, the emperor of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which included Chernovitz as well. There my parents met. My father was not from a Frum family, and that caused a bit of friction until they got married in 1930. My father was the youngest of 9 children. His father died young, and the family tried to survive doing business and whatever the Jews did at that time, very common. The Jewish people lived well and were not persecuted under Emperor Franz Joseph reign. That is very important because times changed, and suddenly the Jews found themselves in the Second World War. The Romanian and German started persecuting Jews, and in Chernovitz, half or more or less of the Jewish population was deported. The other half stayed in Chernovitz and in the ghetto in the city. There was a ghetto in the city. They left them there.
Do we know where they were deported to?
Yes, so they were deported to the Ukraine today, Mogilev, that is in Transnistria. Jews who were deported suffered terribly under those circumstances and tried to stay alive between illnesses, typhus mostly, and very cold weather, no clothes and no food. In this environment, I was born in 1942, and to everyone's surprise, survived and lived in the ghetto as a baby.
So your family weren't deported; they stayed in the ghetto.
No. That was in Mogilev. They were deported.
They were deported.
Yes, my father and my mother were deported. Most of my father's side of the family were deported to the ghetto. And he had an older brother that was very wealthy, and he was shot. Yeah, the whole family, I mean, there were two children at that time, a boy and a girl. The girl died with the parents, and the boy went to Israel, but the ship sank. So he died also on the way to Israel.
Do you know who shot? Was it German or
those
Romanian?
were the Germans mostly. But I am a bit unsure in this case, because the Romanian wanted to get rid of the people that were wealthy. You know, they were interested to get all their
positions.
Yeah. So it could have been the Romanian in this case. It's not very clear. We don't know actually that well the story. I know a part of it, that my father tried to get him off the train, that they told him to come with them where they were going, but everybody they didn't know where they were going, where they were sent. So my uncle said, no, he's going to continue with where they told him to go, and then they shot. Yeah. So many of my aunts and uncles died in the camp, some due to the lack of food, medication, weather conditions, etc. They were not killed with bullets, but were dying because of the horrible conditions they lived in. They were not those that stayed in the ghetto where I was born. Those were dying there because they didn't have food, they didn't have shelter, they didn't have anything. Also the typhus. When the war was over, my parents, who lived through all this hell, and I left for Hungary and stayed there 6 months. Then back to Romania. They were trying to get permits to emigrate to South America. I had their family. My mother and I was then 5, got permits and traveled by ship with other Jews who survived to South America, to Chile. It took quite a while to be able to travel from one place to another. So we spent 6 months in France and 2 months in Panama on the way to Chile. So you can imagine today you do it in a few hours. After Panama, we arrived to Chile. There I grew up, went to school, and my father got his permit only a year after we left. And after a while, the Russians closed all the borders, and it was almost impossible to leave Romania. He stayed behind. They let him go only 1 year after we had, and because we were there. Many Jews had to stay behind the Iron Curtain because they didn't manage to get out. And many years later, they managed to go to Israel, all these people that stayed behind. Then I grew up in Chile, South America, and when I finished school, I decided to go to study to Israel. During that trip, I met my husband, who was going to study engineering in Haifa. We married in Chile. We went back to Chile to marry because most of the family was there. And then we went back to live in Israel. All our children were born in Haifa, and we lived in that beautiful city until we decided to come to South Africa. And we came only for 3 years, but we're still here. That's it. I didn't really speak too much about that part because my daughter was only 13, and I didn't think it was necessary for her to know things that happened really more with detail. But yeah.
Dear, can I ask, what do you remember? I know you were very small, but
I was a baby.
Do you have any recollections of Hungary or?
Yes, Hungary, maybe a little bit, but not really that much either. And I know a few things that happened, but not really the life that we had there. Or I know that all the Jews were looking for relatives everywhere, and there wasn't much work they could do. So the Joint, at that time, the Joint helped a lot of Jews to leave Europe and to go to, well, they were in France. The main part of the Joint, that is the organization that helped all the Jewish people to leave that part of Europe and to go wherever they wanted, because people didn't have any money, no documents, nothing.
They were displaced.
They were totally. And yes, I wanted to show you, actually have my birth certificate, which is not a real birth certificate. It is in Hungarian, not in Romanian actually, and it is written on the machine from my father's, how can I say, memory, I don't know. He actually told them that I was born the 2nd of September of 1942, and he told them where, in Transnistria, and all that, and they wrote all that down, and that is a certificate. It's very old. I have to take it in the hands, very carefully, because it comes apart. So I keep it in a box, but I didn't take it out. Maybe if you want to see it later, I will try to find it. Well, my parents had a very hard time in the camp. I must say that. I was born in the military hospital. No lights, nothing. There I was born. And people were very surprised that babies survived, and I wasn't the only one. I know as a fact of a lady that was born also the same year, and I read it in the Google, you know, I was Googling all the survivors in other countries to see if I could find anybody from the family. And I found this lady. She also survived. She lived in Israel. I don't know if she's alive today, but their part of the family went to Israel immediately.
And can I ask, who was in charge of the camp? Was it Germans?
The Romanians. No,
it wasn't
those
Germans.
they were Romanians. They didn't kill people. You know, they didn't themselves kill the people, but the people died. Like, I remember that my father told me the story that a train arrived with Jewish people at night. He says that it must have been 20 degrees under zero, because that is, yeah. And nobody could go out, nobody could help them. Only the next day in the morning, the people went to try to help them, and they found all the people frozen, right, to death. Yeah. They died because of the cold, and they hadn't eaten probably, and they hadn't had anything. Shame. That story I heard from my father, because he must have gone also with the others to try to help, but too late. Yeah.
And was it a work camp as well?
No, that was a camp that actually the Jewish people, if they found a job, they could work. That part, there were two Mogilev camps. One was worse than the other. I don't know in which one we were, but in this one they didn't kill people with their own hands. They let them die. That was their system.
Yeah, you're a miracle to have been born in the camp and to have survived in the camp. And
yeah, I think that is really very
rare.
Very rare. Yeah, people didn't survive in better conditions. And you know, today when I look at the babies born in the clinics, you know, with all the best possible conditions, and I remember what my mother told me, then it is really surprising. And you think, why does it that babies survive this? You know, how come? It's strange. It's not really, it's like other people that were in the March of the Dead and they survived, and the others didn't. Matter of luck.
Well, it's Min Hashamayim. It was...
Could be. We don't know really. We don't know. Yeah, so I don't know what else to add to that at this stage.
You showed there's a book where yes. Where people from America, they went back to
Chernovitz, their families.
That's where your family came from.
Yes. And I was lucky my children got it for me because it is from America, and you know, here they had only a few books, and I don't know if they really sold them, but they managed to get it from America, and it was a gift for my birthday.
Wow.
Because I wanted it very much. I was very interested in the stories that they had to tell, and they found the places where they lived and all that, and even registered where the parents got married.
Wow.
Can you believe that? Is so strange.
So it has the documentation?
Yes.
And it speaks about your parents as well?
No, not particularly. My parents were not in the group. You know, it's only from that group, the families. But it's the same story. Nothing is different. And you have to be gifted and to be able to write something like this, because you need to know the place, you need to know the geography, the history, and what happened there. It was really incredible. That
Leah, can I ask, were you ever interested, or did you ever go back to Romania or to Hungary?
No.
And any of your children?
Yes, they went, I think two of my children went to Czechoslovakia, well, now it's Czechia, and to Prague mostly. That was very close to our hearts as well, because I spoke the same language and we had cousins there. Actually, they found a plaque in the shul, in the great synagogue there in Prague, that had our name on.
Wow.
Yeah, the name of all the people that were in the Holocaust and died from the...
One of the shuls has got inscribed all the names of...
they wrote it many years ago, and it's still there. They actually, many tourists go and they look at the place, they're interested in the history of the families, so they go. I always wanted to go, but somehow my children moved away from here, so I had to go and visit them. Couldn't go to, but maybe I still do it.
And Leah, can I ask, did your parents often speak about their experiences?
No, actually when I was young, no. They wouldn't let me even sit. Maybe they spoke with their friends, but they wouldn't let me sit and listen to it.
They wanted to protect you, maybe?
Yes, that's the way they had to protect, so I wouldn't hear the horrors of the war and all that. But when I grew up, I asked my mother mostly. I didn't ask. My father passed away, and there was a time when I was very busy. I had 4 children to look after, and so I didn't ask too many questions. But then my mother was too old. Then when I started asking, she was already old. She couldn't remember everything. And I'm not 100% sure that she really knew, but whatever, I mean exactly how it happened. But when I have a cousin that, I don't have her anymore, she passed away. She lived in Israel. They were part of my family, of my father's side of the family they were at the same ghetto that we were, the same camp. And she was then 11 years old. She was the middle daughter. There were 3 daughters. And she wrote a book. I have it here somewhere, but I couldn't find it. I tried to find it now. So she wrote about the family and the experience that they had there. And because she was bigger, she remembered. Yeah, she was 11 at the time, so she remembered how it was. And I think that people are horrified when they hear these stories, but it's life.
And can I ask, from your family, your parents' family, how many survived the Shoah?
From my father's side, about 1, 2, 3, 4.
Only 4?
4, yeah.
Were they close family?
Yes, they were quite close. I think that they were lucky that my grandmother, she had diabetes and she passed away before that all happened.
So who survived from your father's family?
Well, he was the youngest and he survived after my mother took good care of him when he had typhus, Then a brother that stayed in the ghetto in Romania, in Chernobyl. He wasn't deported, so he survived. And then there were a few nephews and nieces. Yeah, but one of them, the one that wrote the book.
The rest of the family were...
They died. They died.
And on your mother's side?
On my mother's side, they were not there. She had one brother was already in South America, the younger one. The other brother got papers. He paid for false papers for him and his family and the grandparents. So they went out when the war was finished. They left. They stayed behind, but they were not considered Jews because they had false papers.
And where were they staying during the war?
It was in Chernobyl.
And they stayed as Jews in Chernobyl?
Not as Jews. They had papers that they were not Jewish.
But the rest of the neighbors, they didn't tell the authorities, or?
Well, you know, everybody was so busy with their own problems that I don't think that, look, they were not in the ghetto. Those that were in the ghetto in Chernobyl probably knew each other and all that, but they were hidden somewhere in the city. So they were not in the Jewish side,
And
they survived there somehow, you know.
And there must have been righteous Gentiles that helped them?
I didn't hear about that at all. That I cannot tell you, because I was looking for if there was anybody who helped them and so on. Didn't hear that they were helped by a Gentile.
But because they didn't go to the ghetto and
they didn't know they were Jewish.
Do you know what type of papers they had? Were these papers to South America?
Well, those papers, yes, but the papers that they had were to live there. Here you show an ID. So the ID said that the names were different and they were not Jewish for with those papers. They had the original ones as well, because I have here the IDs of my grandparents, the original ones that says that they were born in Chernobyl, and
it must say
her
religion.
My grandfather's name was Abraham, the real name, and my grandmother's name Chaya, so they were very Jewish, and they were frum.
Wow.
So they survived, but because they had these false papers. So
what I find amazing is that because there were many instances where people stayed in the non-Jewish areas and then they were informed by the neighbors, or people got a reward by informing on Jewish people. And
I suppose my uncle, that was my mother's brother, he was quite an intelligent person. He managed in many bad circumstances, and I think that was the help that they got. I mean, because my grandparents were not young anymore, but he actually took care of them, and he took them out to France first, and then to Chile. Yeah.
Wow.
We all were in Chile. I mean, with that part of the family I grew up, because that was my mother's part of the family. My father's, those that survived, went to Israel straight away.
And can I ask, your parents in Chile, were there other survivors, Holocaust survivors in Chile?
Yes, there were quite a few.
And was their circle of friends mainly
they had those
survivors?
Yeah, they were survivors, yes. There were people, I remember that they used to meet on Sundays, and each one used to tell about their, how can we say, experiences and where they were. Some, I don't know, there were people, I remember the mothers of friends of mine, that I was sitting with them and I used to listen to their stories, because it's a pity that I didn't write down anything.
Or there wasn't videos.
At that stage there were no videos.
And yeah, can I ask, your parents, did they came from, your mother's side especially came from a Frum family. Did they remain Frum after the war?
Yes. Yes,
that
did. Side of the family remained Frum. My
Even
mother as well.
After all what they went through, they still they remained Frum.
You see, that is interesting that you ask that, because they had friends, and these friends of theirs, they were also Frum. They were not Frum after the war anymore.
They lost their faith.
Yeah. They went,
which is very hard to judge.
But they lived in Israel, and they loved Israel, but they were not Frum anymore. None of them.
And your parents remained religious after?
Well, my father was never that religious. He became more religious because of my mother. Yeah, but they remained religious, all that part, until this very day. I have a cousin in Israel. He's very religious. He lives in Ramat Gan, and he has 24 grandchildren.
Wow.
So we all thought it was our obligation to have as many children as we could. So as those that survived, that was very important. So the Jewish people as a nation would survive. Would continue. Yeah, that was very important for all of us. So we tried. I have a cousin there. His father remained in the Chernovitz ghetto. He wasn't deported. Now this cousin has also 16 grandchildren.
Wow.
Yeah, they're all in Israel. So that is very important that people know that you can survive. There, unfortunately, not that many did.
Yeah.
That is very sad. But
and yeah, can I ask? I mean, you being a survivor, being born in unbelievable in a camp during the war in 1942.
Yes.
It's incredible, and to have survived, it's a miracle. There's no other word. It's
I also
miracle.
think I look at it as a miracle, and you think that you have something to do or to help the world or to, I don't know, make them understand what it was, but everyday life is not that idealistic.
No, but you're married and you've raised a beautiful family.
Yeah,
and,
thank God. Yeah.
Baruch Hashem. And what message would you give to the next generation?
That is a difficult thing to do.
But
I think they must think of themselves not as a special one unit. They're part of the whole nation.
And they must consider others.
They must consider that.
Wow.
And it's very important that Israel has a place in the map, and well, as you hear today, there are all sorts of problems, of course, but we wanted to grow, and now that the survivors are passing away because they're old. And they'll take that way.
And you're very happy having lived in Israel, seeing the miracle of the state of Israel?
Oh yeah, it was, we came from Chile to Israel to study. That was in '64, yeah. My husband went to, we were from the same school, it's a Hebrew school in Chile. It's called Chaim Weizmann, the school.
Your husband's family, are they also from survivors?
No, because there's some that they were survivors, but mostly they went to Chile before the war. Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of them went, I don't know how they went after the war, maybe. They were, I remember, he was from Germany actually. He survived the war, but he's not alive anymore. And they went also to Chile. It was a place they thought it was quiet and nice, and the Jewish people could live very well there, you know. And although that is part very interesting, because in the south of Chile there were many, many Nazis hidden, you know, in farms, and they got very wealthy, and they had whatever unbelievable. The big Nazis were caught in South America.
Sure, in Argentina.
They
were in Chile as well, in all parts of South America.
In the south. Yeah.
Did the Jewish community ever come into contact with any of the?
I don't think so. No. But there was one, their leader, a young man that we used to hear from him. Every now and then there was something in the newspaper that he was very into the Nazism. He was a Nazi. And we used to hear, we were at school and we used to hear from him what he was doing in the south. But it was quiet, it wasn't, apparently they wouldn't let them do anything.
And Leah, can I ask, have you transmitted or related your story to your children? And grandchildren? Well, you wrote this for your grandchild?
Yeah, that was my granddaughter who needed to make some work for when she was at the yeshiva college. It's difficult. They're very young. She is one of the oldest, and she's only 14 now. So.
But your children know your story?
Yes, they do know. Of course, they all know. Yeah. Look, it's a bit difficult for them also to. They remember their grandmother, and they remember that probably she used to tell them something about it. But the younger ones don't. They have only my story, which is
also absolutely incredible.
Well, it's not as interesting as the, say, Veronica story.
No, everyone's story is amazing. But Leah, your message, that what you've just told us, that we should not just think of ourselves as individuals, but as Israel, as the nation of Israel, and the importance of the state of Israel, of
very much
having
so.
Israel.
Very much so. And well, they have to remember also that it happened. I don't think it's healthy to dwell on it too much, but they must not forget.
So we don't repeat.
Yeah, this mustn't be forgotten. It's very important that people remember that.
So I just want to really, thank you so much. I'm going to.
You will have to do what they.
Leah, I just want to. I must just thank you so much. It's been such a great honor and a privilege to be with you.
Oh, thank you very much.
And to meet somebody who is literally a miracle. That you survived.
Thank you.
Hashem had plans for you, and
Probably.
your parents must have been the most amazing people to have brought you up in such unbelievable conditions, and look at you, and you've got a family, and you're incredible, and your story is amazing, and your message is amazing, and I really want to thank you so much for giving me your time.
Thank you very much.
It's been the greatest honor and privilege to meet you and to hear your story.
Thank you very much, and I'm very much impressed that you do this.
No, it's a big schut. It's a big honor.
That's very nice. Yeah. I'm sorry that I couldn't.
No, you're amazing.
Yeah. This is my grandmother, and this is her ID from Romania. She was born. No, my mother was born in 1903. She must. Yeah, it's a long time ago. Maybe you want to see here it's written in Romanian, and this is my grandfather, Avram. Also,
it's amazing. If I can have a closer look.
Yes. I was looking actually for my.
I'm just going to show. This is the.
And believe it or not, that is my. That was given to me that I was born and so on. But I have another one that I told you a letter. I don't know where it is. I'll try to find it.
This is so incredible.
It's interesting, all this, What is this? Oh no, this is me from Israel.
So we're just going to go through. So this was this is amazing, these documents.
I kept everything here because I had to fill in a whole lot of forms the whole time. They asked me, because they were doing an investigation of all the people that from Romania. Israel was doing it. They called that HEART. I don't know what it was for, but so I made a whole lot of copies, but I don't know where everything is.
So this is, I'm just going to show while you, this is your grandmother, and
Yes.
it's from Romania.
Yeah. Now, the problem is that you cannot really see well. Here it is from, it's interesting, you know, you make me, you remind me things that I haven't seen for a long time. This is a letter, a certificate they call it, from the Ministry of External Relations. They certify that the Consulate of Chile in Paris is authorized to give us a visa.
Wow.
You know that when we went
So
to
just show. Yeah.
yeah, this is
This is
it's
when
in
you-
Spanish, so it's a bit of a
It's amazing. And that was in 1946, on the 26th of June 1946. Incredible.
But I think that I didn't come to Chile until 48, so maybe it was given.
And yeah, this is the original, and I think your father, it was written in 1945.
Yeah, it wasn't written actually when I was born.
Yeah,
it was when
it's-
the war was finished.
It just finished.
Because, and here that is like my certificate, my birth certificate. You cannot even.
And where was that made?
That was in Cluj, Kolozsvár, Hungary.
in Hungary.
Yeah. But it is in Romanian, and it might have been at the consulate of Romania. It's not in Hungary. Hungary, they have a very difficult language. That is easier for me to. Yeah, I don't know if I can find anything more because I wasn't prepared for this, which is a pity. I'm sure that there must be some other documents, but look how they look.
It's amazing, but this is your history. This is
Yes, every time I open it, you see,
so
this is the
that's the original.
original from the copy here.
So
That
this is the original
Yeah.
copy of.
of the whatever they called my birth certificate.
And it is the Romanian. There we have the. It's incredible. It really is. It's the original.
Yeah, and
And it has revenue stamps of Romania. Wow. This is the real.
you believe it? Even I find it very, very interesting. I don't really look at these things
Okay.
very often.
This you must keep. This is very, very, very valuable. You know, for
I
your
don't have
family.
any other. I don't have any other. If I need to show a certificate,
That's the.
this is the one.
But yeah, if you could hold this, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Because this is really, that was your father wrote. This was the very first documentation, and it was done in 1945. And it says your name. And
Also in Cluj. You see, they were in Cluj because they went, when they were liberated, they went to Cluj in Hungary.
And it says Leah Kerner, yeah.
Yeah, what happens is that they write it Kerner with the two what do you call it? I forgot the name. The 2 points on
Yeah.
the.
So that is
So now in the
incredible.
modern era, we decided to change and to add an E.
That's really, this is so, I'm so glad that you've kept it. It's, this you must hand down, there's no value. You know, you can't put a price on this. There's just, the value is, it's priceless.
Yeah.
Not that there's no value, you can't put a price. It's value. There's just, you can never put a price on this. This is your history and what you're for.
There was actually a document that the Germans sent me, because I asked them to do it, from my parents in the camp. They were in the camp. I don't know exactly what is everything now. I don't know. I was looking for that one because that is a very interesting document. It says where they were in the camp.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you have the document?
Somewhere.
Okay.
But you know, that is a problem because I don't know where and it will take a long time to find.
Okay.
There's so many. Those are stamps. They're not. I loved stamps. And I used to get stamps everywhere. When I was in Israel, I used to buy them. But here, I just took them from letters and so on. The thing is, probably there is another box with those documents because I cannot find it here. Here it's Israel. Oh, this is my husband. These things. We have so
Well,
many
Leah,
books.
can I just tell you this? What you found here,
Yeah.
and if you could just show this again, because it really is something extraordinary. And I think for your father to have organized this is the very first identification document that you have.
Yeah,
That's incredible. So Leah, thank you so much.
it's a pleasure. I really appreciate that you are so interested.
I think everybody would be so interested. Thank you very, very much.